Start with it as a subcommittee with the consent of the vice chair, and I will call for the roll when a quorum is present. Senator Padilla, you're at the top of the file. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I have two bills to present this morning. SB 17 is the first relative to smart grid deployment in the state of California. As we've all been coming to learn over the course of the last 12 months, smart grid would go a long way in improving the effectiveness and the efficiency of our electrical transmission and distribution system, as well as facilitate our not only the current 20% by 2010 renewable portfolio standard mandate in the state of California, but the proposed 33% RPS by 2020. There's also good news in this arena. A lot of federal funds through the economic stimulus package being made available throughout the country, specifically to California, for smart grid deployment. So this bill would not only establish smart grid deployment as the policy of the state, but require the PUC by July 1st of 2010 to determine the requirements of such deployment consistent with the policy set forth both in this bill and federal law, would require each electrical corporation to develop a smart grid deployment plan and submit it to the PUC for approval, would also require publicly owned utilities to develop a smart grid deployment plan as well. As for the fiscal impact, which I know this committee is concerned about, the Public Utilities Commission as well as the Division of Ratepayer Advocate both believe that the fiscal impacts of this bill are minimal to absorbable. And while the Energy Commission does not agree, I believe the analysis before you is correct in what the actual costs associated with the bill are. So would love to entertain any questions and certainly ask for your support.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Is there testimony in favor? Is there testimony opposed? Finance, do you have a comment?
The PUC indicates that the costs would be minor and absorbable. The Energy Commission estimates it would require 3 additional positions and $590,000 from the Energy Resources Program account. And we would evaluate requests for new positions and new funding during the budget process.
Thank you. Comments from the committee?
Yes. Madam Chair, I would move this bill. There are not any amendments to be taken.
There are not.
As soon as we have a quorum, I would move this bill.
Thank you, Senator Cox. There's a comment from Senator Leno.
Question.
Then we'll call for the quorum, and then we'll take the vote.
So federal law currently requires states to consider smart grid technology and put forward somewhere near $4 billion in grants.
Yes.
So will we be in a better position to get compete for those grant dollars with this legislation than without it?
Absolutely, with it. We're sort of ahead of the curve right now. This would put us even further ahead of the curve, and we're already active in Washington to lift the cap that was written into the economic stimulus legislation so that we'd be able to draw down a greater amount of dollars.
Right.
Anything else, members? I will ask. I'll ask you to call the roll.
Kehoe.
Here.
Kehoe here. Cox. Here. Cox here. Corbett. Here. Corbett here. Denham. DeSaulnier. Here. DeSaulnier here. Hancock. Leno.
Here.
Leno here. Oropeza. Runner. Walters. Wolk.
Here.
Wolk here. Wyland.
Here.
Wyland here. Yee. Here. You're here. Yes. You got it.
We have a quorum. I will. There's a motion by Senator Cox on SB 17, and we'll call the roll on SB 17. Do pass.
Kehoe.
Here. Aye.
Kehoe aye. Cox.
Aye.
Cox aye. Corbett.
Aye.
Corbett aye. Denham. DeSaulnier. DeSaulnier aye. Hancock. Leno.
Aye.
Leno aye. Oropeza. Runner. Walters. Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk aye. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland aye. Yee.
Aye.
Yee aye. 8 to 0.
8 to 0. That bill is out. Members and the public, just a little bit of housekeeping. I was so eager to get started with Senator Padilla. You notice at the end of the file there are several items for vote only today. These were the items I inadvertently closed the roll on last week. So those members who are absent will have a chance to cast their vote only. And in order to, at the busy time of year, make sure we're as organized as possible. The committee's position on other business is that if there is a standing committee of the Senate in session and a member is presenting in that committee or a member of that committee, we will hold the roll open. Otherwise, we will close the roll each time a bill is taken up. So if you could consult your schedules and act accordingly and make every effort to be present here, our business will move that much more swiftly. And I really appreciate my Vice Chair, Senator Cox, working through these issues with me.
And Senator, when is it that you're going to take up the bills that were left over from last time?
At the end of the file.
At the end of the file, so everyone has a fair warning.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you, Senator Cox.
Senator Keogh, just to clarify, so either if someone is presenting in another committee or has another committee that overlaps.
Correct.
Okay.
Another, which you are a member. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For example, BNP sometimes, if we go into the afternoon, might overlap.
That's
as
correct.
long as we inform you in advance.
That's correct, Senator Weiland. Actually, I would appreciate the courtesy, but if you have business presenting or are a member of a Senate Standing Committee at the same time, we'll keep the roll open for you and accommodate your vote. All righty. Thank you, members. SB 25, Senator Padilla, this is a suspense candidate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I understand this is a candidate for suspense. I also believe you were interested in hearing from opponents as well as supporters, and I felt it's important to present and provide a little bit of context for the bill for your consideration.
A wise decision, Senator Padilla. Yes, we definitely want to hear your side of it because there will be testimony.
SB 25 seeks to raise the bar as it pertains to the diversion rate of waste from California landfills for multiple reasons consistent with policy goals. First of all, to continue to reduce our dependence on landfills in the state. Second, to reduce greenhouse gases produced in the state. And third, to preserve our natural resources, among others. A lot of us remember AB 939 by Senator Byron Scher at the time that sort of set the bar that we have reached today, calling for 50% of the waste generated in the state of California to be diverted from landfills. What we've learned in the process over the last couple of decades is, as successful as we have been, there certainly is a lot more to be done, a lot of waste that's still going into landfills that could and should be diverted. Specifically, this bill would require local jurisdictions to achieve a 60% diversion rate by the year 2015, would establish a statewide diversion target of 75% by 2020. This is sort of a part two of a bill that I introduced last session, and among the feedback and questions and concerns that rose out of last year's bill is the need to not just raise the bar, but provide additional tools in the toolbox to reach that new level. So in that spirit, this bill also would mandate commercial recycling by the year 2012 in counties with a population over 200,000. This would include multifamily dwellings. Unfortunately, the vast majority of residential recycling takes place in single-family neighborhoods only. So we're leaving a lot of great potential, and I'd suggest low-hanging fruit, untouched today. This bill would target that. This bill would also extend the amount of time the board has to review waste facility permits from the current 60 days to 90 days to allow more time for consideration and approval. This bill would also impose a tipping fee increase to $2.13 with an inflator over time to keep up with inflation, and also provides tools to local governments for illegal dumping. I believe that the costs associated with the implementation of this bill would not come from general fund but special fund, primarily due to the tipping fee increase. I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Is there testimony in favor? Testimony in favor of SB 25, please come forward. Is there opposition testimony? Come right up, please. Tell us your name.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Paul Smith with the Regional Council of Rural Counties, representing the boards of supervisors of 30 rural counties. We have strong concerns with the majority of this bill, not every aspect of the bill. We recognize some good things in here, but obviously we are very concerned about the increase in the tipping fee as proposed here, and the increase to local governments' mandates of getting to 60% by the times outlined in here. We believe that's a cost borne by counties in a very, very difficult time when we're facing a lot of other pressures. And for those reasons, we remain willing to work with the author. I know the author and his staff have held a lot of stakeholder meetings, want to continue those discussions, but for the purpose of this discussion, we remain very, very concerned with the bill on the issue of the tipping fee increase and the diversion mandate.
Senator Cox.
Mr. Smith, do you know how many of the rural counties are out of compliance with respect to their landfills? not having the proper liner, or the landfill has reached its useful life?
Senator, I'm not aware of any. I can only say that a number of rural counties have been able to work with the Waste Board to accommodate either the diversion number or lack of meeting the mandate for whatever reasons, as well as the other permitting requirements.
You know how many of the rural counties are not meeting the current requirement of 50%?
There are a number, Senator Cox. However, the Waste Board, under current law, has the ability to grant a permanent reduction as well as a temporary reduction. I would guess to say it's probably about a dozen of the 30 rural counties that we represent are in that box.
Senator Padilla, the Waste Board would still have the authority to grant those waivers, or are we placing these counties in a situation, a bind that they just can't get out of?
Yes, sir, those waivers would be maintained, as well as the commitment to working with those counties to develop strategies to up their numbers and recognize good faith effort at meeting the targets.
All right.
Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Great bill. When was the last time the $1.40 per ton tipping fee was amended upwards, adjusted?
Good question. I'll defer to technical staff or finance on that. 1996.
Okay, and so this is
Thank you.
This is adjusted for a bit more than COLA?
Right at about COLA, maybe a little
Right
bit
at
more.
about COLA.
Yeah.
So it's not an arbitrary number. We did some math and landed on it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments, members? Any other opposition testimony or other testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The bill would result in an increased revenues of about $26 million to the Integrated Waste Management account based on the current landfill use in the state. The board has not been able to provide an estimate for the costs for implementing the new programs required by the bill. We're concerned that the bill does not limit the amount of funds that would be available through the newly created grants and loan programs, and as such, the bill could unintentionally oversubscribe these new revenues. And the Integrated Waste Management account does have a structural deficit with ongoing expenditures exceeding revenues by about $10 million prior to any consideration for the cost pressures in this bill.
Thank you.
How much have they overspent? You know the number?
It's about $10 million. We spend $10 million more annually than they receive in this account.
So how much is their surplus? How long can they continue to spend $10 million more than they're taking in?
It's been a problem for a number of years, and I believe it will be exhausted next year. The structural problem will need to be dealt with no later than.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Members, this is a candidate for suspense. Without objection, it goes to suspense.
And if I may, just in closing, one of the things that some of the folks in our stakeholder meetings have raised that I'm very sensitive to is the timing of this proposal, given the state of the economy, specifically the economics of the secondary market for paper, for plastics, for aluminum, et cetera. We've been working through some policy issues over the course of this last year. The economic concerns on top of that are not lost on me, but I do believe it's time to set the bar in out years, provide the tools necessary to get there, and keep moving towards these goals that have multiple environmental and economic benefits.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. And it goes to suspense. The Senator Pavley is next. Senator Wright. Senator Lowenthal, are you present? Senator Lowenthal. SB 455 on high-speed rail. This is a due pass. Senator Lowenthal, we're ready for you. Thank you.
Are we allowed to comment? Wait a second. I know.
Excellent.
Excellent. We're going to do
455.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members. The passage of Proposition 1A transformed the High-Speed Rail Authority from a planning and promotional entity to an operational agency. Therefore, several changes to how the agency operates are necessary, and that's what SB 455. It primarily addresses the issues of accountability, and it's an outgrowth of the 4 oversight hearings that Senate Transportation and Housing has held over the past year and a half regarding the High-Speed Rail Authority. What it does is, number one, it enables the authority to manage property that it acquires. The authority asked for that, and that was included in SB 455. It also requires that the Senate confirm the 5 gubernatorial appointees to the authority, members of the California Transportation Commission, and many other state boards and commissions are subject to Senate confirmation. The bill also ensures that investments in high-speed rail infrastructure between now and when the service is operational in 2020, that they provide benefits to taxpayers by requiring now that the authority invest in stations that are located near high employment centers, that investments in railroad infrastructure be capable of being used by existing intercity and commuter trains. It also says that investments should provide improved connections between the San Joaquin Valley and both Southern California and the Bay Area. And finally, the bill establishes procedures and reports to the legislature that will improve accountability and transparency in how the authority conducts its business. This language was modeled on existing law that requires quarterly reports to the legislature on the status of the Bay Bridge construction project. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. And this is funded by the High-Speed Passenger Trail
Right.
Bond Fund, passed by the voters. Is there testimony in favor? Testimony in favor. Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No.
Members, this is a due pass.
Move the bill.
Senator Lowenthal moves the bill. Will you call the roll?
Senator Lowenthal doesn't move the bill.
Senator Leno.
I would move
Didn't
the
I
bill.
do that
if I
last
did.
week?
Easy to get them confused.
Please call the roll.
Kehoe.
Jews.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox. Cox, no. Corbett. Corbett, aye. Denham. DeSaulnier. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropeza. Runner. Walters.
No.
Walters, no. Wolk. Wolk, aye. Wyland. Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. 6-2. We need one more vote.
6-2. You need one more. So I'll put that on call. Senator Lowenthal, your next one is SB 518, candidate for suspense.
Thank you.
On the financing.
If I may present briefly, parking is never free on SB 518, which is parking reform. In fact, free parking has a lot of economic, environmental, and social costs. The high cost of land and construction to provide free parking adds significantly to the cost of economic development. These costs to businesses are passed on to everyone through higher prices, and free public parking is paid for by the entire community in the form of higher taxes.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Is there testimony in favor? Yes, go right ahead.
Victoria Rome with the Natural Resources Defense Council, and we're in support of the bill. And we believe this shouldn't have any state costs because locals would have flexibility in the way it's implemented and can use their existing authority to raise revenues to cover any costs of implementation.
Any additional testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Opposition testimony. Finance, do you have a comment?
We believe that the bill would broaden the allowable uses of the highway users tax account, placing additional pressures on that fund. However, we're mostly concerned with the mandates in the bill. One of them we believe, would not be a reimbursable mandate, but the second one could result in significant costs to the state.
All righty. This is a candidate for suspense. Without objection, it will go there. Senator Lowenthal, SB 705. Administrative remedies.
As I believe also that SB 705, as you mentioned, is a suspense candidate. Specifically, what SB 705 does is clarifies that an employee must not exhaust his or her administrative remedies in an employee discrimination suit before they file a civil action. It allows for civil actions to be filed without judicial review by a petition for a writ of mandate for employees who choose to pursue their employer's internal processes and their cases are not successfully resolved, so that they can then file for civil action, and allows for the determination of internal processes or administrative hearings, whatever occurs in those hearings or internal processes, to be admissible in court. While the majority of cases today are successfully resolved through the internal process, this bill will allow employees to utilize their employer's internal process without fear of losing their rights to file a civil action if their case is not successfully resolved. I believe that this will result in a significant reduction in filings for civil action and a cost savings to the judicial system.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Is there any testimony in favor? Any opposition testimony? Finance, you have a comment? Comments, members? Then without objection, it'll go to suspense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Senator Wright, I think I saw you come in. Senator Wright? Oh, Senator Wiggins. Senator Wiggins? Senator Wiggins, you are waiving presentation on SB 539?
Yes, I am.
All righty. So then we will go to SB 730 on solid waste fees.
Right.
And members, this is a due pass.
So this is a, Chairman and members, SB 730 is a revenue-generating measure for the state. It requires jurisdictions that ship their waste out of state to pay into the state tipping fee, just like the other jurisdictions that dispose of their waste in state. This is about equity, and it will result in the state receiving anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year from jurisdictions that have avoided paying the tipping fee to fund the Waste Board's grant and loan program. Cities and counties can continue to ship their waste out of state. Members, this is an issue of equity, and the bill ensures that all jurisdictions are eligible for grants and loans provided by the Waste Management Board if all jurisdictions pay into the fund. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and we have
Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. This is a simple, even playing field bill which will require everyone that participates and generates solid waste in California to basically pay for the administration and the regulation of that. Simply because the end-of-life landfill is in another state doesn't change the fact that there are costs that are incurred in the state of California. Urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Other testimony in favor? Testimony opposed? Is there opposition testimony? Seeing none, Senator Leno moves the bill. Finance, do you have a comment?
The department, the Integrated Waste Management Board estimates that it would generate about $560,000 to $1.4 million in additional revenue to the Integrated Waste Management Account Fund, and we concur that it would even the playing field and that regulated activities would be paid for by those that are creating waste.
We have a motion. Will you call the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, no. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham?
No.
Denham, no. DeSaulnier?
Aye.
DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropesa? Runner? Walters? No. Walters, no. Wolk?
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. 6-3. We need one more.
You need one more, Senator Wiggins.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's on call. Thank you. Senator Wright, welcome. We're going to take up your items starting with SB 161.
Okay. And Madam Chair, we're going to take the amendment there relative to PERS.
Thank you, Senator. And that is do we have that language, Senator Wright?
I'm not certain. I hope that you. I think it was done the amendment before we got here, Madam Chair.
I see. Okay, May 21st amendments. We've got those.
Okay.
Go
so
right.
that the concern there is removing the state costs. Simply put, Madam Chair, this bill would specify that certain oral cancer drugs would be a part of the issues for insurance plans. They're
on par with the intravenous.
Yes, I mean, and that becomes a concern. Is that there are a number of people who end up where they would be able to be better served by an oral medication, and there's a distinction placed between how the drug is administered as opposed to what the drug is treating. There are a number of states that have been doing this very effectively. I have witnesses in support, and I won't burden you with a long policy thing that we had in the Health Committee.
Thanks, Senator Wright. Those in support?
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Phyllis Marshall. I'm with the law firm of Manette, Phelps & Phillips. I'm here on behalf of one of the co-sponsors of the bill, Carrie's Touch. It's a group of African-American women here in the Sacramento area that deals with the issue of breast cancer. I'm also here as an individual that was diagnosed with breast cancer on August 8th of 2008. I also served as an oncology nurse before I became a lawyer working at Manette, Phelps & Phillips. I've received IV chemotherapy. I've received surgery, radiation, and I will be starting my PO medication. The PO medication, unfortunately...
We're pulling for you.
Thank you very much. The way that the benefits have been designed, many cancer patients do have to pay the cost of PO medication. We had an individual that testified at the last hearing, was unable to receive her PO medication. However, the health plan did pay for a surgical procedure, portacath, that went in so that she could receive the IV therapy, paid for the extensive emergency room services associated with a malfunction of the IV therapy, pay for the auto syringe that she had to go home with to receive the IV therapy, and we're just hoping that this bill will pass so that cancer patients can take PO medication and can go home and hopefully survive and deal with their cancer. Thank you.
Very good. And there's a lot of testimony, it looks like. So who else is in favor?
Angela Blanchard on behalf of Susan G. Komen for the Cure and strong support.
Thank you.
Melissa Cortez Roth on behalf of Bay Bio, Northern California's Life Sciences Association, and support.
Thank you very much. Other testimony in favor?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I'm Fred Note. We're representing organized oncology cancer physicians in support of this bill and remind the committee that this bill is passed in 5 states. Thank you.
Thank you. In favor? Then is there any more support testimony on SB 161? Seeing none, we'll go to opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Nick Luizos with the California Association of Health Plans. We respectfully oppose SB 161. It should be noted that all health plan enrollees have coverage for oral anti-cancer medication. However, we believe this bill interferes with our formularies and drug benefit management systems, despite the efficacy or cost effectiveness of any alternative. So we have to oppose the bill on that basis. There is a cost associated with the $20 million increase in premiums in the private market. Thank you.
Jason Gappart with the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies. We're also opposed for the reasons stated before.
Marty Fisher on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in opposition.
Joe Crescione, representing Blue Shield of California. We're also in opposition.
Thank you. Any other opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No file.
Senator Cox moves the bill as amended. Beg your pardon?
No amendments during the bill.
Oh, beg your pardon. It's not amended this morning, Senator Cox. It was amended on the 21st. The amendments are in the bill, members, that would exempt CalPERS.
Move the bill.
Correct about exempt is the right word? Okay, we don't want to overstate anything. We have a motion by Senator Cox. Call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett?
Aye.
Corbett, aye. Denham?
Aye.
Denham, aye. DeSaulnier?
Aye.
DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropeza? Runner? Walters?
Aye.
Walters, aye. Wolk?
Aye.
Wolk, I. Wyland.
Aye.
Wyland, I. Yee. Yee, I. 10-0. It's out.
10-0. That bill is out.
Thank you.
Senator Wright, 190.
Simply,
Right, by the way, you need to carry a bill next year that includes CalPERS and CalSTRS and whomever else has been excluded in this situation. The exact same issue applies to state employees as it does to anyone else. So we need to get a level playing field here.
no, I fully agree, Senator Cox, and looking at that, and if I can work out something with CalPERS in the future, it may appear back in this, and it just became a cost issue in the state of the budget this year.
But everyone has exactly the same issue, whether you're private, whether it's for private insurance or whether it's being provided by the state of California.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, as you and I are both survivors of cancer, we fully understand.
We then ought to ask we ought to ask nothing less for the employees of the state of California than we're prepared to give anyone else in the state. So let's figure out how to do that.
Thank you.
SB 191.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair.
Beg your pardon, 190.
Oh,
no need to apologize.
Just popped out.
When you're
Okay.
speaking on behalf of employees and the ill, I'm backing you up 100%.
And we are going to talk to PERS about perhaps doing it voluntarily as well. So we haven't ruled that out.
Very good.
It's not something
Let's
that we
move
can-
on
I'm sorry.
to the next one.
This
Senator Wright.
is simply a truth in labeling bill, Madam Chair, members, with respect to pomegranate juice. A lot of times you think you're getting pomegranate juice only to find out that it's apple or another juice that's much less expensive to produce.
It's an outrage.
It really is. And they call it pomegranate juice. Pomegranate juice has a number of health benefits. This bill was narrowed again to make sure that we're working with the Department of Health Services for the clarification of what it is. So it's no longer a mandate, but it just asks that they do the clarification going forward.
Very good. And this is a due pass. Is there testimony in favor?
Yes, Madam Chair, George Miller on behalf of Palm Wonderful and a member of Pure PJ, the sponsor of the bill. As Senator Wright pointed out, there's a great deal of juice adulteration, primarily from juices, concentrate imported from overseas. California currently has over 35,000 acres on cultivation, and it's a dramatically growing segment of our agricultural industry, and the juice adulteration causes the concentrate prices to be less than they should be on the natural, and it's adversely affecting both the consumers, the farmers, and those that are in fact selling 100% pure pomegranate juice.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Testimony in favor. Is there opposition? Come right up. Opposition to SB 190?
Good morning. My name is Kim Dietz. I work for Smucker Natural Foods. We have a manufacturing location up in Chico, California. I'm here today to oppose SB 190 on behalf of Juice Products Association, and it's a national association representing numerous manufacturers around the United States. We oppose SB 190 particularly because adulteration is covered under the federal CFRs, and all of our members have to we have to follow 21 CFR 101.3. So we are definitely in opposition of SB 190 as an association.
Thank you. Any other?
I have a question. What is CFR 101.3? What does it say? That it's okay to do it?
It's a labeling CFR, meaning that you can't adulterate any juices particularly. So you have to meet the standard of identity for juices. So it's truthful in labeling at the federal level.
That's the federal level,
yes. Okay. So we think it's redundant to have a California bill the same as a federal.
Any other comments?
No. Thank you.
We're protecting the pomegranates. Is there any additional testimony on this bill? Finance? No file?
I move the bill.
Senator Leno moves the bill. This is a due pass. Call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett?
Aye.
Corbett, aye. Denham?
Aye.
Denham, aye. DeSaulnier?
Aye.
DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Oropeza? Runner? Walters?
No.
Walters, no. Wolk?
No.
Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye. 8-1, it's out.
8-1. That bill is out. Senator Wright, SB 484. This may meet the criteria for suspense, and I just want to make a comment before you begin. This is you have a good point here, but there are costs in the bill that come up faster than what might be savings, depending on how it's implemented. So I'm leaning towards suspense, just so you know.
Okay.
Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, certainly in California, there's a growing issue with the use and manufacture of methamphetamine. Unfortunately, one of the primary ingredients to making methamphetamine is pseudoephedrine. What this bill would say is that pseudoephedrine would only be available.
Excuse me, Senator Wright. Members in the audience, it's a small room. We've got a lot of business, so if people could focus their attention on the speaker, I'd really appreciate it. Senator Wright?
Yeah, we went with this drug, Madam Chair, where it was once available by prescription, then it was available over the counter. We since moved it now to where it's actually behind the counter. The problem becomes, Madam Chair, is that we've got what are called Smurf clubs that literally go around and purchase all the pseudoephedrine. Then they have meth manufacturing labs in communities, and you have all of the associated crime that goes with it. You know, I would make the case, and they'll be better made by some of the witnesses, that the cost that's described is actually from the illegal purchase and use of the drug. So, yes, when they purchase it in Smurf clubs where people just go and just buy a bunch of it, they do pay taxes on it. But I would submit that unless everybody in California had a compound sinus problem, there's far more purchase than you'd ever need at the levels that are being purchased. The vast majority of what's now being purchased is being purchased for illegal manufacture of meth. And this, we hope, would reduce that, and the combination of both the law enforcement side as well as the other issues. In effect, we would argue there should not be significant costs. I've got witnesses in support.
Thank you, Senator Wright. Witnesses?
Ken Pogue with the California Attorney General's Office. We're co-sponsoring this bill. I don't have to tell everyone here the size of the problem that we have in California with methamphetamines, but there are a few statistics that I think are important for the committee to hear, and that is that the federal government, through the DEA, estimates that 85% of the methamphetamines used in the United States come through California. In addition to that, although we rank 7th on the number of meth labs in the nation, we make more meth than the top 5 meth lab numbered states in the nation. So we make more meth than the top 5 states that have the most meth labs. And the reason for that is we have more super labs than any other state. And a super lab is a lab that makes 10 pounds or more of methamphetamine, and that's a huge amount. There are a lot of hits that would result from a single 10-pound cook. We had 17 of the 19.
I think I'm no expert, but aren't those labs getting the product, the ingredients in bulk?
Yes, but
across the border in a lot of cases. Or we'll get to you. We'll get to you.
In most cases,
tell us about it then.
They get it both from California and some over the border. But Mexico now has an outright ban on pseudoephedrine. They still have a black market, but they've cut the number of available units.
So these super labs are using the pills that you buy in the drugstore.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Anything else?
We have the luxury here, without getting more into the numbers, of having a test case for this bill, and that's the state of Oregon. Oregon in 2006 enacted their similar program that made it prescription only.
Okay.
Their meth labs dropped 90%, and those remaining meth labs, they're finding, come from pseudoephedrine purchased or smurfed in California. And the costs they've seen when extrapolated to California numbers are huge. And we agree with the staff report, which, by the way, was very well done, I think even-handed, that indicates a huge cost savings in the first year alone. We'd be putting less people in prison. We would be having a serious drop in the cost of cleanups by the Department of Toxic Substances, where they have to go out and clean up where these people have dumped or clean up the homes or bait the nuisance. So this is going to be a huge savings. Thank you.
John Lovell, and I want to speak to the savings issues. In Oregon, In 1 year.
Are you speaking for yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. John Lovell, thank you. California narcotic officers, California peace officers, California police chiefs, LA County police chiefs, ALADs, state sheriffs. Those are the people who aren't here today who I'm representing.
Okay.
Let me talk to the cost issues, though. In Oregon, in 1 year, the number of labs had a 91% decrease. Now, what that means in terms of cost to the state is substantial. That means a significant fewer number of people are incarcerated for running and operating methamphetamine labs. And that, we believe, is going to yield an extraordinary savings. Secondly, with respect to the sales tax argument, it's one of those arguments that's a good classroom argument, but doesn't really follow into the real world, because what happened in Oregon, and this we believe would happen here, is many of the people who are currently buying products containing pseudoephedrine are saying, or will say, well, I'm not going to go get a prescription. I'll buy some other product, and that's what happened.
So the sales tax would stay the same.
We believe it would stay the same,
right.
and we can't validate this because, interestingly, Big Pharma refuses to release their sales figures for Oregon to show what's actually happened. They come and they make the bald assertion, but they don't back it up with anything. On the other hand, we back up the incarceration numbers by the actual experiences in Oregon. Final note, put simply, this is the most important bill for law enforcement this year. There is no other bill more important.
All righty. Thank you. Next, please.
Yes, my name is Kent Shaw. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement for the California Attorney General's Office, and I oversee our clandestine laboratory program. And typically, the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement seizes approximately half of the meth labs that are seized in California. So this is something I've been dealing with for well over 20 years, and I've seen it rise from a very obscure drug that was mainly focused on outlaw motorcycle gangs to now the pandemic that we're dealing with all this. And I can honestly say that this is the one bill that truly is going to deal with the Achilles heel of this problem, will have the most profound impact. And I know from a budget standpoint and within my organization alone and those that we deal with and provide the training and certification, this will have some of the most substantial cost savings that we're ever going to see as well.
And you're seeing it's the retail pills that are showing up in these labs.
Correct. And I would say that in the labs that we're going to, and we're seizing those products with the product numbers and able to track back many of those, including the lab dumps, quite frankly, which is another alarming issue out there, because beyond the labs that we actually seize, there are many more lab dumps which represent labs which are actually occurring that we are not seizing. And I would say in well more than 90%, 90 to 95% of all of those, we're able to definitively prove that's coming from retail smurfed products, pseudoephedrine products sold here in California.
Very good. Next, please.
Madam Chairman, members.
We're going to need some of these chairs, folks. Thank you.
Dan Filizzato on behalf of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. Our office participates in the HIDA program, and in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, Ventura, and Santa Barbara, we have the largest number of labs and lab sites in California. To the extent that these labs disappear, there's fewer prosecutions that our office will undertake, which results in immediate cost savings in fewer individuals in prison. But that cost isn't a one-time cost, because you can say that the number varies anywhere, I guess, $40,000 to $100,000, depending on who you talk to, as a cost of incarceration each year.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Lieutenant Barbara Ferguson, San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. We're in support of this bill. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair, Senators, I'm Jim Votes on behalf of the LA County Professional Peace Officers Association, the police officer associations from both Long Beach and Santa Ana, the California Fraternal Order of Police. Also today, Tim Yarian's clients, the LA Police Protective League, and the Riverside Sheriff's Association, all in support.
Thank you. Next, please.
Marla Marshall on behalf of Sheriff Bill Collender and the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, in support.
Thank you. Next, please.
Crystal Jack on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association, in support of the bill.
All righty. Anyone else in support? Is there opposition testimony? Is there any opposition to this bill? Welcome.
Madam Chair and members, Terry Thomas on behalf of the Consumer Healthcare Products Association. We represent the major manufacturers of over-the-counter drugs. I'm having passed out to you right now sort of a sample list just so that you're aware of the drugs that would be affected when you go into the store to get these. You're already standing in line, presenting an ID, signing a log, which the local law enforcement and the DOJ can track. You've probably heard from a lot of your staff the assertion that most of the people that buy these drugs are using them for illegal activities. As we go around this building, we know from talking to your staff that huge numbers of people in this building survive in allergy seasons on these drugs. We are opposed for fiscal and policy reasons.
I think the crux of the matter is, Ms. Thomas, not that most of the people using the drugs, these drugs are engaging in illegal activity, but that the illegal activity is comprised of these pseudoephedrines to a large degree. I mean, we just heard all that law enforcement testimony. So if you want to stick on that one, it would help me make up my mind.
Yes, I did hear that assertion, though, from the proponents. I do want to introduce Mandy Hagan from the Consumer Healthcare Products Association to speak to the fiscal aspects of this drug.
Thank you.
I mean, of this bill. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Mandy Hagan. I am Director of State Government Relations for the Consumer Healthcare Products Association. We represent the leading U.S. manufacturers of all over-the-counter drugs, and of course including those that contain pseudoephedrine. With regards to the issue of diversion and how much of the drug is being diverted, there really aren't any solid estimates. What we can tell you is that the one state that has released information about the amount of sales that they block because they would be over legal limits is Kentucky, and they block less than 1.5% of sales because they would have violated the federal quantity limits. If you want to achieve the savings in costs from getting rid of meth labs to the extent that they are the result of people smurfing and exceeding the quantity limits, you can do that by enforcing the federal sales limits. California has yet to enact any limits on how much pseudoephedrine a person can buy other than a 9-gram per transaction limit, when federal law requires a 3.6-gram limit per day or a 9-gram per 30 days.
And the purpose of this display is?
Just so that you can reference what products we're referring to. Those are all products that contain pseudoephedrine. And just briefly, I think what you should remember is that this issue isn't as simple as saying you can put the product on prescription status and all your meth labs will go away. And the reason for that is that there's simply not, you might think that the states that have the highest number of meth lab incidents also have the highest percent of sales of pseudoephedrine. That would seem intuitive if this problem is just coming from OTC pseudoephedrine, but that's just not the case. The state that has the highest number of meth lab incidents in the country is Missouri. They had almost 1,500 meth lab incidents in 2008. They have about 2% of the U.S. population in Missouri, 1.8% of the U.S. pseudoephedrine market. That's what we sell there. 1.8% of our market is Missouri. And they had 22% of the nation's meth labs last year. So this issue is more complex than just saying it's over-the-counter pseudoephedrine, put it on prescription, you'll solve it.
Where's Missouri in the lineup of volume?
It's 1.8%. That's volume.
It produces 1.8% of the meth?
No. The 22% of the meth lab incidents is incidents. It's not how much meth they produce there.
Right,
and I don't have that comparison.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
That's fine.
And just to elaborate too on Oregon, they achieved most of their reduction when they put the products behind the counter. They did achieve an incremental additional reduction by going prescription, but it was the same year that the federal law passed and everybody put the products behind the counter. So it's really hard to say that their RX law is what accounted for their entire reduction. So those offsets in cost, I think, are somewhat speculative. And finally, in Oregon, in February, the state police there busted a huge meth lab capable of making 150 pounds of meth using phenyl-2-propanone, which is a different chemical that's already restricted under federal law, and that method involves no pseudoephedrine. So you will not eliminate meth labs. You'll not have any impact on the availability of meth, and there'll be substantial costs to consumers and to the state.
Thank you. Next, please.
Peter Kellison on behalf of Walgreens. We're in opposition on fit for fiscal and policy grounds. Pseudoephedrine is effective and it works. There's a reason why people seek it out in pharmacies. There are many products available, but it seems to have an effectiveness that is unique. On fiscal grounds, we would assert that there are costs that may not be contemplated in this analysis, and we would use as an example the Healthy Families Program, which currently does not cover over-the-counter products. If pseudoephedrine is made prescription product, then it would then need to be covered by the Healthy Families Program. I don't know about Medi-Cal in terms of why there's no cost there, but we believe that there would be a cost for the Medi-Cal program as well in terms of covering a new product it's not currently covering.
Thank you. Next, please.
Jennifer Snyder on behalf of the National Association of Chain Drug Stores. Just to reemphasize, that we think
no reemphasize new information, or you can just state your position.
Just that we have strong concerns about just access related to pseudoephedrine for our clients, for our patients, and I won't reemphasize.
Thank you. Next, please.
Trent Smith on behalf of Rite Aid Pharmacies in opposition.
Thank you.
John Caldwell on behalf of the California Grocers Association in opposition.
Thank you. Next, please. And if you could fill in these seats, go ahead.
Good morning, Kathy Procida with Johnson & Johnson. We are opposed to the bill.
Thank you.
Marty Fisher on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, and also we'd like to let you know that Oregon doesn't have sales tax, so a comparison on sales tax loss isn't, you can't do it.
Well, even I can figure that out. Thank you. I didn't know they didn't have a sales tax. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Nick Luizos, California Association of Health Plans in opposition.
Jason Gapper with the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies in opposition.
Dorothy Rothrock, California Manufacturing and Technology Association, opposed.
Madam Chair, members, Paul Gladfelter representing Shearing Plow, also in opposition.
Any other opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No, fine.
Members, Senator Cox.
Well, I want to just ask a couple of questions now.
I'm
one who asked my doctor for something to take care of some nasal during the time of the greatest allergies. And so he said, well, what I would recommend to you is Claritin D, but you don't need a prescription for that. You just have to go behind the counter and get that. Pharmacist wasn't too happy about it when I went behind the counter, but I now understand what the procedure is. What I do need to know is they give these to you in a 12-hour or 24-hour congestion tablet. They give you 30, I think, or 15, one or the other. They don't give you an unextended amount. How much Claritin D and that the ingredients there, how many of those do I have to collect to get 10 pounds of meth?
Well, the approximate ratio is 1-to-1 if you actually know what you're doing. So, for example, for every gram of pseudoephedrine that you have, you could manufacture 1 gram of meth.
How many grams in Claritin D 12-hour allergy and congestion tablets? 30 of them.
Well, 30 would be that would be a third. There's actually, if you look, the most popular ones they're going after is 120 and 240 milligrams because they provide the most. That would be approximately 1.2 and 2.4 grams of pseudoephedrine that could be extracted out of those to be converted into methamphetamine. So that demonstrates the enormity of the problem that they're able to amass such large amounts of these substances that actually go and feed all the labs that we have in California, including the super labs, where literally we have piles of this stuff that would fill this table several times over and stack up about 5 feet tall of all these products that are being diverted over to these labs.
The smurfing activity, Senator, is very sophisticated. What happens is you'll get a crew of drivers, and then they recruit people in the streets, and they'll say, I'll pay you $100 at the end of the day. And they literally go from store to store to store to store. Everybody buys the max.
And they're buying it from behind the counter now.
That is correct.
Okay,
Everybody buys the max. And in one day, they can amass enough to make $20,000 worth of meth.
Okay. Senator Cox, any other questions?
No, that's it, Madam Chair.
Members, any other questions? Senator Weiland and then Senator Runner. Senator Runner, then Senator Weiland.
Just real quick, how long has behind the counter been in place?
Since 2006.
2006 was that actually 2006 was the legislation, or 2006 is actually when the product had to actually be behind the counter?
Some did it voluntarily prior to that, but the actual...
Okay. You're answering. Use the mic, please. Thank you. It's one speaker at a time. Go ahead.
The federal law, the Combat Meth Epidemic Act, was passed in 2006. Some places voluntarily did that prior to that time, but that's when effectively it went into place.
Okay. A couple other follow-up. And again, it's been years. I think it's 10 years ago. I actually did the first bill here in California. We actually limited the amount of purchases off the counter and went through the battles of what that would all mean. But I got to tell you, this is a different kind of leap for me. Let me just ask you a couple follow-up questions. Sure. The idea of getting a prescription, does that? I mean, I'm interested. The CMA is not here. Does that entail having to make a doctor's appointment? I mean, do we have doctors that actually you can call up and say, "Send me a prescription"? Most doctors I know don't do that. Most doctors then make you come in and then write your prescription.
Well, again, this is one of the lower, and substances that does not can cause addiction, things of that nature. So not compared to like Schedule 3s or 2s, those types of substances. These are ones that, depending on your relationship that you do have with your physician, the ability to get that, where you could do, after an initial visit, could continue to do phone.
I'd be really interested in the future discussion as this bill moves along to hear from CMA, the author, I guess I'm talking to here at this point, to hear what their procedures are. I can't even imagine the CMA says, okay, our physicians can go ahead and give prescriptions over the phone. I got to believe that they do, but it's because you have a relationship with that physician, not that they have a policy that would be approved by how they do their business by saying, oh, this is not a very dangerous drug, so you can go ahead and give this over the prescription over the phone. That's one question I would have, and that is not only does it, you have to go to the pharmacy, you have to get this, but what is your interaction that you have to actually have with your physician in order to get this? Let me ask you then to follow up in regards to. Whenever we do these kind of things, all we do is, it seems to me, is oftentimes just open up the internet sales of these activities. Obviously, if somebody has the means and the ability, they'll just go ahead and order this stuff off the internet and have it mailed to their house, right?
There is a lot of work that's being done in that particular area, passing legislation as well as enforcement.
Well, who's passing the legislation right now dealing with the internet on this stuff?
Well, at the federal level, there's a great deal of work that the DEA is doing, and we're working in conjunction with that here in the state as well to address those issues. But quite frankly, that is not an avenue, which is a problem right now. We continue to work on that particular area.
Here's what I'm afraid you're going to create. You're going to create a couple of classes of individuals. You're going to create a class of folks who are smart enough to figure out that I better go ahead and mail order, or I better go ahead and go to the internet and order these things because now I've got to go to my doctor. Right. Well, that's good for all of us that have access to it that way. But most people don't have. A lot of people, I should say, don't have access like that. Right. And so if you don't have access to figuring out how to go on the internet, how to do all that, you're forced then to have to go to your doctor to get it. And it seems to me that's quite a distinction of difference that we're creating amongst individuals in access to these kind of products.
And I think the Oregon experience, again, is one that we keep going back to because, again, we have 3 years' worth of data up there, and that simply did not occur up there. They do not have a rampant or even a problem that I'm aware of for pseudoephedrine being purchased via the internet.
No, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm not saying it's a problem and then they're using it illegally. I'm just talking about the normal person who needs the medication.
Well, in Oregon, most people, and they did not have any public outcry or any of the concerns that everybody thought that they were going to have. People simply either went over to other OTCs that were readily available, or if they were dealing with a physician that already had a relationship, they were getting more substantial medications beyond what pseudoephedrine would provide to them to deal with whatever ailment they had.
Is there any other medication? I mean, the description of what it is that when something's a prescription drug, how does something become a prescription drug? Why is it a prescription drug?
Well, typically it has to do with what kind of impact it could have on a person. Certainly those that are...
Who decides whether it's a prescription drug?
Yeah, it's Controlled Substance Act is one of the avenues of that. There's decisions that are made on that.
FDA
does that. We also,
so they all decide that.
And we legislate that here at the state level as well. Our controlled substances here are scheduled differently than they are at federal levels oftentimes. So there is some local...
But I know that by controlled substance, but
Members,
not necessarily by prescription.
I need to just interrupt and remind you that we should be on the floor. This will be the last action until after session.
I got a lot of questions, and a lot of them have to do with access to physicians and those issues. So I think, as we talk through this, I think those are the issues we need to deal with.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rutter. Senator Wright.
Again, many years ago, in my community, we used to have an epidemic with a drug that was called PCP, or angel dust. And I actually wrote a bill then with Assembly Member Waters, and we heard some of the same complaints. The concern was that cyclohexanone and piperidine were substances that you could just go to a store and buy, and those were the precursors for making what we called angel dust. When we made those Schedule II drugs, the angel dust labs almost went away. What then began cropping up were meth labs. So when you're looking at meth, you're looking at round 2 of angel dust. Had we not gotten rid of the precursors, piperidine and cyclohexanone, I submit to you that people would still be smoking angel dust. I can't say that if we get rid of this meth that there will not be something else, as one of the speakers came. But I think what you have to do is every time you find one of these drugs that's available causing the harm that it does in our communities, you have to get that one. And so this will not prevent people from getting the drug. There will be some difficulty, but we've already seen that, Madam Chair. This drug was originally available only by prescription. Then when the prescription element ran out, it was over the counter. Then they moved it back behind the counter because the danger was so great. We're simply saying that they were right the first time when they made it a prescription drug in the first place, and that's where it ought to remain. Oregon, as the witness pointed out, Oregon has been doing this. They too had the federal law that moved it behind the counter. If you had been in the public safety hearing, the gentleman from Oregon who helped write the law was here to testify that they saw a significant reduction. His concern was that now they're getting pseudoephedrine coming from California
Senator,
to fund their labs.
let me jump in, and I hate to cut you off, but
okay.
let me say
you're the chair. So
let me say the core of the bill is very solid. I think a lot of the members are interested, but I think the committee would like to look further at the notion of costs here. I am strongly leaning towards suspense. So I think Senator Weiland still has a comment, and then we need to go to the floor. Senator Weiland, is there an
Yeah, just briefly, this is an awfully complex bill to bring before us, competing data. I'm as concerned as anyone, and I think we all are, about reducing the availability of methamphetamines. I notice in support we have almost all law enforcement, but district attorneys from a couple of venues, not across the state. And other issues have been raised. This may be a really good thing. It would have obviously a big impact on over-the-counter purchases people make every single day. There is, to my knowledge, one more powerful prescription decongestant, which is rarely prescribed. The issue of access that Senator Runner made is important, I think. There's the issue of you're supposed to show your driver's license and write your name down when you buy this. This may be really good. Today I can't support it.
Thank you, Senator Weiland. Any other comments? Finance already spoke. Senator Wright, a brief close, and then without objection, we'll move it to suspense.
Okay, well, if it's going to suspense, Madam Chair, why don't we leave it at that?
It is, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We are in recess until after Senate session.